All right. Welcome to tonight's showdown in between two teams of Sun Leviathan versus the Flash Abusers. This is going to be the semifinals, or sorry, the quarterfinals of the Targon Bracket for the just to see who goes into the semifinals now. So, have you looked into these teams, seen what they are up to? Any type of ideas and drafts that these teams may try and go into? I know that you've seen a little bit of these teams before. Yeah, it should be a very good matchup. I've actually played against both of these teams before, and both of them have brought it to game three and made it a very close series. But inevitably, both teams I played for against them obviously have lost, and they have moved into or moved on inside of the bracket. So, a lot of hard feelings, but I'll try and not let it show into this game. Unfortunately, both of these teams do have one E-sub each. So we have Thylaco going into the mid lane for the side of Flash Abusers, as well as we have Alcalora, I believe, for the side of Sun Leviathan. So we're gonna have to see how both of these players end up playing around those those new players coming for their teams, seeing if they're going to try and push different leads, try and push some of those established players that they have, and see if they can get those players ahead, or if they're just going to play the normal styles that they play, and hopefully those players can fill the gaps. I know there's definitely, or sorry, go for it.
then I could see that working out pretty well for either of these sides. Can they hear us? Can the people hear us? All right. Well, that was a fantastic. They can hear me, but not you. All right. Well, hopefully we can get that resolved here pretty soon. Well, I guess that I'll give the front end intro until we can hear Inigo once again. This is the semi-final matchup here between Sun Leviathan and Flash Abusers. It's going to be a best of three. I am Tiger. I'm here with Inigo Montoya. We're going to be bringing you through this one. Hopefully, we'll be bringing you through this one. We're starting to get into the bands here. You can see already a lot of respect paid to these meta picks.
Hello.
I hear you double, which I'm going to assume means that that's going to be one instance for everyone else, hopefully. I can mute the first version of you in the call, and then I should be hearing you single as well. So hopefully that will fix the issue.
Yeah. Hopefully it should work out now. Okay, there we go. All right. So our first pick is actually going to be Wukong on the side of Flash abusers.
The
All right.
loathed Yumi getting banned there. A lot of supports being banned away by Sun Leviathan, trying to pay some respect to Bento here. And other than that, I think the jungles getting picked early on makes sense. Lilia would be a good answer to Wukong here, just thematically in the jungle. And I think that setting up to play in sort of similar styles, but trying to dance around the enemy team works well in the 5v5s later on as well.
Yeah, I do know that the side of spies is definitely one of those very heavy Lilia players that we know. Uh, it's going to be very interesting seeing Lilia come out and see how she is able to play around this game. Uh, Definitely playing against spies on that Lilia has been a very traumatizing pick that I've seen.
Going to be a main focus here for Sun Leviathan. Picking another Vestian as well, the Zaya, one of the strongest marksmen in the meta right now. Going to be able to operate on a weak side pretty effectively. Now, I think that in competitive play across all levels, I've seen teams play Zaya to different effectivenesses. Obviously, she's really good in the late game, really good in the team fights. Even in some matchups, she can be pretty good in the earlier stages of the game. But what I like for teams to understand and show the understanding of is that Zaya can be weak sided in the early stages of the game. So, knowing that you want to draft around ability to strong side mid or top lane, I particularly like it when you can strong side mid lane and then utilize that to roam into the other areas of the map. But I'm hoping that on
Mm.
R3, we're going to see some Leviathan lock in an engage style support and then try to get some roam potentials out. Something like an Amumu or a Nautilus would be good.
Yeah, definitely. Although we are going to see the Rakan being taken away from some Leviathan, so they're not actually going to be able to get that couple duo going. But the Taric ends up being the counter into that Rakan pick. So definitely pretty strong pick, especially with the stun still going through when the Rakan knocks up. Uh, so that is a very good pick into there. And now some of these bans coming out. Ornn looking like the first ban against Flash abusers. So Small Broski is definitely going to have to find a different top layer to be able to play inside of this game.
Yeah, gonna be more difficult to blind without that Ornn available. Could ban away the Malphite as well, just to try to take away some of that security, make the last pick rise in value as much as possible. I'm a little surprised to see Flash abusers banning a top laner as well, because when you pick in the Veigar and the other team has not locked in their mid laner yet, that can be an opportunity to protect that mid lane pick. I kind of liked the lock in of the Veigar on B3 because then that forced Sun Leviathan to answer either the support pick or the mid lane pick. And there's a lot of great marksmen, so you're not too concerned about getting into the second phase of the draft and being in a deficit to the Zaya, but instead looking to ban out top laners, trying to make sure that this R5 counter pick is not too overwhelming.
Yeah, we're going to have to see if that ends up being the difference here inside of this draft. Like you were saying, they are picking some, or sorry, they are banning away some of these champions that are not quite the best into a Veigar. Um, but Vladimir, okay, not one of the picks that I was seeing coming into this mid lane. Again, it could go top, but Vladimir is definitely one of those strong counters against a Veigar. Just being able to pull outside of uh that cage and not allow Veigar to be able to play into that safe type of lane that he so enjoys and be able to stack up those Qs.
And in addition, with the way that Tarek wants someone to be able to survive and let his ult come down to them, Vladimir could be a pretty good target for that because going invulnerable will just help that make sure that it's able to execute, not allow the enemy team to get kills before you're able to get that invulnerability from the cosmic radiance. And I kind of like the look here. I'd like to see Sun Leviathan finish it off with maybe like a mobile melee champion. Something like a Fiora or a Gwen would pair really well with what they've got so far.
Yeah, seeing some of the picks that Malachor V is known to play is that Aatrox is definitely pretty dangerous with him, although not a very good champion now. Did get a few buffs in this last patch, but not quite enough to make him back into the meta. So I do expect probably a Jax, maybe. Uh, That's probably one of the better AD picks that he has been playing. I don't know if he's been playing in the past, but I know in his solo queue, he's definitely been practicing that pick. Although, definitely
Now
a
wait a
Fiora
second.
lookalike, that Camille coming out against the Dr. Mundo.
But now wait a second. We got Corki locked in as the B5. So wait, is it a Vagar bot lane? Is that what we got going on here? Gonna be able to put the cage around the Zaya and the Tarek? I think that looks pretty good. I think, yeah, this is a position where, having that uh, mage in the bottom lane is gonna be pretty effective. I mean, there's no huge tanks on the enemy team. Now, you got to be careful because if you get into a position where Tarek ult lands onto all 5 members of Sun Leviathan, then that Vagar drastically goes down in value. But if you can just find some picks, go for some quick bursts, I think that that's going to get through just about everyone except for maybe the Vladimir, because you can just pull the ultimate. But other than that, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to utilize this spicy bot lane pick. However, that does mean that they're taking away from the DPS that you would get if you did select a marksman.
Aw, come on. What's the worst that could happen?
Are you still there, Inigo? I've stopped being able to hear you.
Uh,
Welcome back. I was just talking about how I thought that picking Vagar makes a lot of sense into a lot of the enemy champions. Vagar as the AP carry specifically. But I think that having Vagar as opposed to a marksman is taking out of the damage that we're going to see, DPS variety particularly. So we could see a struggle for the side of flash abusers to be able to take out big objectives. They're going to have slow Baron damage, and they can knock down some towers with some of the magic damage dealers that they have, but it's not going to be the easiest to just push advantages into the victory unless they can get a bunch of kills.
yeah, agreed. I do have a little question into the Flash Abusers draft, though. There is a little bit of a difference of how they're trying to play the game. We have the Vagar and the Corki just trying to poke down some of those champions, while we have a Rakan Wukong trying to go full in, make sure that they get as many members as they can inside of those very powerful ultimates. It may just have to be a timing into the Sun Leviathan, making sure that Targ doesn't get that ultimate down. Vladimir isn't be able to get some of those blood sucking abilities out. And so it's going to be a kind of a dangerous game for the flash abusers to be able to play out here, especially if they're not able to, connect those ultimates into some of the same timings. So I
Yeah,
do enjoy the Vagar, however, it just is a little bit of a difference in the themes that they're go.
I agree. I think that with that in mind, I'd like to see some itemization to reflect the understanding of that from Flash abusers. I've been talking about understanding all day, but you got to understand when you've got a Wukong as your engage, when you got a Rakan as your engage, but you don't have the DPS backing it up. What they're looking at is now your Rakan and Wukong. They aren't engaged champions in the 5v5, they're pick champions. You're trying to find one isolated enemy team member, find all of the CC chain going on to them and assassinate them as quickly as possible. And particularly with Wukong, I think that that can be built around in the sense where you go for some more assassiny of a feel. You go with some items, maybe like going even with like a dusk blade could be pretty interesting, or maybe like a prowler's claw. I'm not sure if people have experimented with some different Wukong builds, but I'd really like to see some itemization, at least to show that Ghost Lifter knows that it's not going to be a sustained 5v5 that you're trying to look at here.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. We will have to see how these drafts end up going out. Right now, these champions are going to be getting into the draft, a little bit of a spectator delay for us. But until we come back, we do have Flash Abusers on blue side. First game in the Targon division for the quarterfinals of the knockout stage. So we'll have to see if Flash Abusers are able to pull it out or Sun Leviathan can maybe execute these uh, these plays in the end. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in about 2.5 minutes. 3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome back to Flash Use First Sun. Yep. It looks like it's going to be just a standard 5v5 right now. Nothing too dramatic happening at the beginning of the start of this game.
Oh, I've seen my favorite item already. Cull has appeared in the inventory of Thylaco. I love Cull. Also a big fan of Dark Seal. I saw that someone picked it up and I think sold it immediately at the beginning of this game, but not a big deal. However, will take a moment here to talk about what I think is going to be the big important parts of the early game. I really have an eye on this top lane. I think it's going to be very important for Malachor to at least neutralize the early stages of the game for Small Broski. I think that the biggest win condition available to Flash abusers this game is to get that Mundo fed. If you can get to a spot where he's pretty much unkillable, there's no one on the enemy team that he's going to have a hard time dealing with. You can just walk up and start hitting them and they will die. They aren't meatballs, they aren't immortal champions. Well, except for the 2.5 seconds that Cosmic Radiance can make them immortal. But they can't be living forever. So you want to get that Dr. Mundo ahead if you are Flash abusers. So with that in mind, the response from Sun Leviathan has to be understanding that the top lane is going to be an area of focus and making sure not to die there. So I'm happy to see Malachor has taken Flash, even though Camille can sometimes survive without it.
Yeah, definitely a lot of training inside this mid lane right now. I do agree that it is important for Small Broski not to fall too far behind on that Dr. Mundo. We do know Camille to be that natural chank killer. Ooh, a nice knockup by Rakan, by Bento, making sure that there's no trade back onto Leon. But yeah, Small Broski, if he does fall behind, it's going to be a brutal matchup against Malachor. That Camille is just going to be able to shred and do so much damage with that true damage that she does have in her abilities. So it'll definitely be important to at least not get ahead, but at least not fall behind at the very. So it will be important to see if Spies does try and push towards Small Broski in this top lane, try and get him below, try and get him to fall behind and let that Camille take over, or if she's going to try and go for this Vladimir, see if Tooler is able to take over against this Corki, take over against that E-sub that we do have on the side of Flash abusers.
Going to be seeing a 5 camp clear into bot lane gank from Ghost Lifter. Maybe not going to overcommit for this one. I believe there was a ward in that tri-brush, so not going to be able to find this
Ooh.
play. But not sticking around too long either. Just going to walk on over and trade the Scuttle Crabs. And with the full clear for Spies, that definitely has to feel good for Sun Leviathan. You want to get to level 6 on the Lilia as fast as possible. And fast is the name of the game for that champion. So able to get that full clear completion on the first time through. Going to be looking to do the same the second, most likely. Going to be hard to find any ganks before that, but if you do, it's not going to hurt either.
Yeah, already. It is looking pretty rough for the side of Flash abusers. Sun Leviathan, Tooler is going basically blow for blow against Thylaco, but Tooler does have the champion with that self-sustain. Thylaco trying to trade back over and over, but that Cole is just not giving the same amount of damage as Adorn's ring. And Malachor, we're already seeing again, ooh, the flash forward, but no ignite on the side of Tooler, so no kill goes over. Flash with flash inside the mid lane, but no deaths, only recalls.
And with double recalls coming through, that's going to be good for Thylaco, who has teleport available, can get right back out to the wave, push that one out. It will prevent any sort of usage towards the side lanes to cover at any point. Actually, it looks like we're just going to see Thylaco walk to back to lane,
Yeah.
so not going to be utilizing that teleport. Interesting choice. We'll have to see if it does get used at any point in the next 5 or so minutes
Yeah.
before it would have come back naturally. First Drake on the board now. It's going to be a Mountain Drake. We'll see if that's going to be a high priority for either of the sides. I think the resistances can be useful, but there's not a ton of tanks in this game. I guess that I'd say the stats are a little bit more helpful for Flash abusers, but I don't think that they're going to have enough prio in the mid or bot lane yet to be able to just walk straight to it.
Well, that Mountain Sword does, or sorry, that Mount Drake does actually add a lot of resistances for the side of Sun Leviathan. Although you are right, the tanks. Oh, but we do have a fight going in the soft side. Small Broski going in with that ultimate, but not quite enough. Seeing that Spies is there to support his top laner, so no damage. Although a double knockup from Bento, the damage consistent from Lien here, and just being able to hit those double stuns, those W's, and so the damage from above is just making it very hard for the side of Son Leviathan to play this bot lane.
I
But
I heard what you were saying in the first stages of seeing the Tarek into Rakan matchup coming through, as we may get another gank here in the top lane. Flash still available for Small Broski and no ultimate for Spies, but
no
ultimate is
ultimate for
available
Small
for
Broski, so
Malcor.
that means he is not actually able to cancel any of that CC, but the flash coming out ends up saving his life, getting just underneath turret range. So Spies is not able to free hit, and he ends up living for another day.
Yeah, Spies re-ganking the top lane, was able to get the ult out the first time, second time through Flash expended by Small Broski. One more time must spell death, I suppose, but we'll see if we get there. Spy's probably going to want to get to level 6 before that third gank comes through. But going back to the support matchup, we've been seeing throughout this game that Bento is pretty free to go in and not get stunned on his way out, because while the stun would go through the knockup, you got to be able to push the button before the knockup comes through. You can't press the stun button after it, or else he's just going to dash away. So got to be quick on the fingers if you're Toadstep.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely one of those player diffs right there.
It could
But
be internet diff too. I mean, like, you don't have a big window there,
true.
but
Yeah, it is definitely one of those abilities that is harder to hit, especially when that stun is coming in. Playing over 60 ping can definitely make it hard. 40 ping can make it doable, but definitely hard. But we do have Spies going into this bot lane, a fight going top. Small Broski trying to heal up through the damage. But like you said, Spies hitting 6, the double stun, and hitting the double stun with Tark as well. Getting Lian and Bento is not able to use either of his summoners to try and escape that. Lian flashing out to save his life, but not the life of his support. So the first blood does go over to Alcora, but we also had a kill on Malachor as well in the top lane. So the first blood was actually drawn by, Spies, not Alakora. And Malachor taking his kill in the top lane just after.
yeah, good things happening on all sides of the map right now here for Sun Leviathan, able to pull up strong in the early game. Already going to see an Executioners coming through for Malachor to make sure to cut down on some of that healing. Makes the matchup even more tough for Small Broski. And I think that we've gotten to the point where I was concerned about for Flash abusers. They needed to be able to support this Dr. Mundo in the early stages of the game, but now Small Broski is playing half a champ, maybe a quarter of a champ. If you can't go toe to toe in the 1v1s, then there's not going to be much opportunity for Dr. Mundo to be useful in the later stages of the game. Gonna have to force odd number fights to be able to get any value there, and particularly up against a Camille with an Executioners, you're gonna have to find places where that Camille isn't in order to be useful to the team.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be very hard for him to play. We also have to look at the CS, already down basically 25 CS at 10 minutes. So, not the strongest performance from Small Broski in this game against the Malachor on Camille. So, like you said, playing half a champion, a fourth of a champion, it's going to get even harder as Camille gets more of those items. That Sheen, that Warhammer, the Executioner's Calling, like you called out, just cutting down that healing from the ultimate. It's going to make it so much harder and so brutal for him to be able to play inside of this lane safely.
I'm taking a look now at all of the itemizations. Looks like we're going to get Essence Reavers the first time for Thylaco. Makes a lot of sense.
Ooh, but we
No
have another
deviation. Oh, we
fight
got the
inside the
all-in
spot
bot.
lane right now. Toadstep trying to get the stuns, but not quite. Bento using that ultimate to get out, using that quickness just to quickly escape the damage from Alcora and Toadstep. Yeah.
Well, now we
Sorry,
can
not
see.
to cut you off or anything.
No, it's all
Ooh.
good.
As we saw again, Bento going in and Leanne using that ultimate to kill out Alcor Laura. And now Toadstep is feeling the pain of Ghost Lifter, the ultimate coming out, the Cyclone knocking him up, and he does end up falling. Now the Drowsy coming, the Lullaby, and Sleeps saves the life of Spies trying to escape the three members of Flash Abusers. Not using those flashes this time, except for Ghost Lifter, still not leaving. Spy's trying to hold that lane, but he will have to give it up to the three members of Flash Abusers. 2 for none as the return kills come through.
That's a good stabilization there. I was just about to comment on Ghost Lifter's build as I was talking about the items as well. It looks like we're not going to get a large deviation from the normal Wukong build. Maybe going to be a Maw second is my guess with the Null Magic Mantle. Could just be building that to lock in tier 2 boots, trying to get the Merc treads. Get some MR when you're up against a Vladimir and a Lilia is never a bad idea. But I think that we're not going to get any assassin-y style builds like I had originally hoped for, as the second Drake is up.
Yeah, now Ghost Lifter definitely trying to go for this turret, or sorry, for this Drake, but it's going to be very hard as he goes in early. Unfortunately, the kills are coming through for the side of Flash Abusers, getting the smite. 2 kills on the side. Spies and Toadstep end up falling, and Alcolora is on the wrong side of the map. Bento flashing in and gets the kill on his bride. No longer living inside this life. Sorry, honey. And now 3 for none, and the Drake going to the side of Flash Abusers.
Going to be looking like some domestic abuse in that case, but whatever the case, they're going to be 2 Drakes going over 2 Flash Abusers. Now they've gotten themselves a separate win con. I was hoping that they were going to look for the Dr. Mundo win con, but at this point, Ghost Lifter 2-0-2 on the Wukong, starting to scale up with their burst mages as well. Corky at 1-0-2, 1-0-3 for Lee. They're in a decent spot. I'm going to try to continue stacking up the Drakes. We've got a Hex Tech Soul coming up this time around. Couldn't be better for them. You're going to be able to utilize it to the maximum with that ability haste, with the ability to keep putting out the static Shiv poke. That's going to be exactly what the doctor ordered for this team comp. And Flash Abusers making the most out of what was a rather tumultuous early game.
Yeah, definitely. And now we have another flight coming into the jungle. Ghost Lifter having to use that Cyclone to try and get out and actually almost killing Malachor, but not quite. Spies trying to live and just falling before Ghost Lifter falls. Tooler is able to answer back, but he will answer back for the price of his life. 2 for 1 going to the side of Flash Abusers. Ghost Lifter only member to fall. And now it's
Ghost
just
Lifter
becoming even more of a lead for the side of Flash Abusers here.
just surviving so long there allows the team to collapse. It was originally a 2v1 in the pick setting, but Malachor dropping so low at the beginning of the play kind of made it backfire, because trying to bring Tooler in late, not that helpful. The rest of the team collapsing from Flash Abusers was able to set up multiple kills, and now that's another one onto Thylaco, and that's a kill going over to Small Broski as well, which can help stabilize that top lane matchup.
Yeah, now that he does have that Hearthsteel, it's going to be, one of those matchups where, okay, so he is falling fine down behind, but honestly, all he is that meat shield. So all he has to do is run forward, try and get as much health as he can from some of these closer champions, the Tark, the Camille, and just stack up some of that health from the Hearthsteel. Again, hitting another one, getting another 28 HP in the end. And just as that happens every, I believe, 30 seconds, is it? Yeah, every 30 seconds, just being able to gain 28 HP over and over inside this top lane, and that's honestly all he has to do.
Well, we'll see if that's going to be enough. Going to be a little bit of
Ooh,
a gank in
but
the
a
mid
kill
lane.
coming in, possibly Ghost Lifter going in. but he is getting answered by the TP from Malachor, trying to escape, but it's gonna be very hard. Almost getting there, Tooler trying to use that ghost to get closer, but not close enough before the answer of the bot lane of Flash Abusers, and now he ends up being the one caught out. Tooler falling to Ghost Lifter, the one he tried to pick, ends up being the pick in the end, and now another kill going over to that side.
Malachor came in with no ultimate, teleporting to just support the mid lane 2v1, turn it into a 2v2. But on the other end of it, tries to go for the kills, goes a little bit too deep, doesn't have any CC to follow up, and that means Ghost Lifter is able to get out, and all the while, Small Broski able to do damage on the top side, able to close this CS gap, and now that's 2 towers going down in the solo lanes for Flash Abusers. Going to be in a great position now, up 3,000 gold, and they'll be looking to take a third Drake here in just a minute.
Yeah, although they were about 1,000 gold, about 1,500 early on in the game, it is swapped to a 3,000 gold lead to the side of Flash Abusers at 60 minutes. So not definitely not something that can't be overcome, but something that does have to counter in, especially on some of these very key champions like Ghost Lifter, being able to go deep. Thylaco having 2 kills on his own, even though he is an E-sub, uh, he is in mid main, so he is not unaware of how to play this game, how to play within a team setting. And now it looks like it may be some of those E-subs just making a little bit of a difference inside this game. Maybe not quite as comfortable as they would hope to be inside this 5v5 matchup. So Alcalora definitely falling behind 0-2-1, but the side of Thylaco with Flash Abusers 2-0-4. So a strong showing from him.
I don't think that package was up, but it looked like Thylaco really wanted to get a reset off. Gonna teleport in behind now.
Yeah, trying to look for it here. The package is here, and now the ultimate coming out from Tark, but not quite enough. Running in, the ultimatum coming, but now it looks like he is going to be the one caught out. Tooler trying to find Lian in the back lane and gets him, but not enough as the rest of its teammates start falling, being the only one left alive, now being run down by Small Brewski. Maximum dosage being used, and it's not going to be enough as these heals come out, but he does not know the healing of a masochist. The masochist ends up taking him out. So 5 for 2 to the side of Flash Abusers, and the Drake going over to their side as well.
Gonna be now on Soul Point very early on. The pace will be a little over 23 minutes into the game when that fourth Drake can come up. Gonna be an opportunity to go for the Rift Herald as well. Not a lot of damage available to deal to this dragon, obviously, with the main DPS falling in the fight. Gonna have to wait a while to finish that one off. But all the same, able to secure it, and that's all that they needed to do there. They can kind of play a patient game here where they can just clear out waves, wait for that soul to come up, and be on a very early win condition coming through for themselves.
Yeah, it's going to be a very hard game for the son of Sun Leviathan, or sorry, for the side of Sun Leviathan to be able to play out. Flash Abusers having an excellent showing on all sides, even Small Broski coming back from the depths of being so far behind against that Camille. Now he started about 20, well, I'm sorry, 30 CS down and a kill down. He's now a kill up, 2 assists up, and now it looks like he might fall. He's trying to answer back Thylaco, and he gets the shutdown, but not after, sorry, not after falling himself to Small Broski. So another 1-for-1. Although it is a good trade for the side of Malachor, it is, again, another lead going to the side of Small Broski there.
Yeah, Small Broski now at 3-1-4. What a great turnaround from a difficult early game. Got solo killed, but now with 2 items complete, starting to be pretty tanky. Starting to be that full champion that I thought that he may never get to, but now certainly has. Going to be difficult to deal with without having the DPS of a marksman. Alcalora, that's a tough one, but going to be the main
Ooh,
threat onto this
another
move.
knockup coming over from the side of Benzo, almost getting it, but the exhaust coming out from Toe Step against Lian. And now the Veigar not quite having enough damage on top of that ultimate. But now Tooler, the pool coming out trying to live through, and the blood pools ends up being enough. Hemo play keeping him alive as he gets underneath that turret, making Small Broski, second guess a little bit without going for that dive. And now it's time for Toadstep to be the one to take his turn on being caught. Unfortunately, he falls for it, so it's just making it a little bit tougher for Sun Leviathan to be able to come back in this game.
Sometimes you just have to contest for the blue buff. As a fellow support player, I understand the feeling. You see the other team coming into your jungle. Hey, they can't come into my jungle. And then you go in with your chest all puffed out, and then all of a sudden they blow all their spells on you, and you're dead because you're a support. What are you gonna do about it? Of course, you can't do anything without the team. The team was relatively close by, so maybe there was some merit to trying to go in around there. But with such a gold deficit as they're at, 5,000 gold behind, maybe not the most advisable of plays there.
Yeah, it's going harder and harder for Sun Leviathan to be able to come back. The gold definitely favoring favoring flash abusers here. 10 stacks on the Rod of Ages for Lien, getting that maximum coming out. We have about 200 health coming out from Small Broski. It's becoming harder and harder for them to be able to play. Uh, what do you think is the key for Sun Leviathan to be able to come back in this game?
Well, they're just going to need time, and time doesn't seem to be on their side because they're going to have to find what. Well, they're probably going to need to find a pick before this upcoming Drake, realistically, if they want to have a chance to fight. And with it being a Hextech Soul, they almost have to, because if you're up against Hextech Soul, Corki, Vagar, things are just not going to end well for you. Tool are going to at least get some damage down. You don't necessarily need a kill off of the pick, but you do need to hurt the health bars enough that you can get full control. You would be able to win any ensuing fight. So gonna have to set up around that. I think trying to pick up a little bit more farm here, trying to get on maybe those 2 item power spikes before they get to this Drake. If they can do that, then maybe they'll have a chance. But it's going to take some really clean angles at the start of the fight, or else being able to find that pick.
Yeah, and with both objectives now coming up, Baron and Drake in less than a minute, you're going to have the difference in between Baron and Soul Drake coming out. Flash abusers are going to have their pick of the litter. And like you said, that pick coming out, trying to get onto Lien here, but
They
Ghost
found one.
Lifter ends up saving his his ADC technically and trades back the kill onto Alcalora, getting out himself, and now Toadstep falls as well. So the missing bot lane is going to be detrimental for the now Drake spawn coming in just a few seconds.
Could have been good there if they could have gotten out alive. If you even just exchange all of those abilities, able to get out the ultimate of the Wukong, the flash of the Vagar, that's not the worst thing in the world, but having those deaths makes it that much more difficult. And Tuller trying for the miracle play.
Yeah, he
Not going to
was
find it.
trying for it, but not quite getting there. Spies not there for the smite, and he was just trying to distract them enough for his 80 or for his jungler to come over, but not being able to distract him long enough as they end up getting the kill onto him. And now that Drake is falling, leading to the soul going over to the side of flash abusers.
Well, with that, it's going to be a long game for the side of Sun Leviathan here. I don't have any way that I can see them coming back formulating in my mind. They've got a little bit of pick potential, but it's not that great. What they were trying to do there was about the best that they could do. If you go back to the beginning of that play, you see the bowling ball come down, you land the sleep onto Vagar. Okay, he flashes over the wall, and then there's no further follow up. I think that in order to do better than that, they pretty much need all of their spells available at the beginning of the play, and they need to be able to get the drop on anyone that comes in.
Yeah, another pick coming out onto Toadstep, just not having the best game right now against Lian and Bento. Bento has been so crucial with these knockups, just hitting one after the other, sometimes getting both of them on Alcalora and Toadstep, and just making it so hard for them to be able to play that outlet, giving Ghost Lifter that extra lead going in. Tooler now trying to stop this Baron from going down, but losing half his health early on. It makes it so hard for him to be able to get in. Now it's Malikor's turn, one by one, and they end up falling again, one by one. And now the Alcalora and Spy is sitting on the other side. It's going to be so impossible for them to be able to fight this 4v2. As they're just
Let's
going
see
to
how
try and hit it from the back, but it's not quite fast enough. Alcalora is circling all the way around, but Lien is here to stop Splash from ever getting close and now finding his match. He almost hits the stun, but not quite. But the double stun coming out from Toadstep, the sleepy, drowsy, and now the Zanya's coming out and just enough damage to be able to kill Lem, but falls himself to that champion. The lack of falling, but Benton saving mid laner here. That E-sub doesn't mean any difference. He will still save that teammate. And now the Baron is basically going to be free as Small Broski ends up taking the turret on the bottom side.
And there we have the surrender coming through. I think that the Baron fight was exquisitely played there by Flash abusers. They recognized that they don't have the best damage to the Baron, and that their optimal play was going to be baiting the other team in. You know, if they can just chip damage on it all the way through, avoid letting their backline take damage. Their front line pretty tanky, good sustain available to them. They can just start hitting it for low amounts of damage for a long period of time. They just have to do that and wait for the other team to come in and attack them and then play for the turn. That's exactly what they did. They were able to finish off the ace, and that was enough for Sun Leviathan to know it was time to wave the white flag there on game number 1. Just got pushed off the map. The soul really was what sealed the deal. And at the end of the day, game number 1 going to go over to Flash abusers.
Yeah, 100%. It's just making it very hard as those early objectives started going down. Wukong getting on that Drake before he hit 6 and taking that down as soon as it spawns, basically every single time. And that led to a 23-minute Soul Drake coming out. I believe a 25, 26-minute Baron going as well. So these objectives just falling as quick as they come up. It makes it extremely hard for Sun Leviathan to be able to play. So if you had to give the MVP for game 1 over to someone on Flash Abusers, who would you choose?
Probably got to be Ghost Lifter, able to turn around the early stages of the game. Those ganks coming through once the level 6 was there, that was the big difference maker in my eyes. Able to influence all sides of the map there and then stacking up those objectives quickly as well. That's a team decision, but the jungler is always foremost in that, making sure that the smite secure is true. Every time it was. So well done to Ghost Lifter and well done to Flash Abusers winning on game number 1.
Yeah, well, there we have it. That is the end that we have for game number 1. We're going to take a small break as we start getting into game 2 of Flash Abusers versus Sun Leviathan. Flash Abusers getting the head start as a 1-0 lead. So don't go anywhere as we get ready for it. All right, welcome back to game two. We have to going to be on your side again. This one, Leviathan is going to be taking red side for the second time, seeing if they can change up the different what happened before. Do you think there are any differences that they should make into that draft so far? It looks like they're going to be banning away that Wukong, afraid of what the damage it did in game one.
Well, they definitely know what to look for now. The Vagar bot pick was a little bit unusual. I don't think that there was a ton of flaws with the draft for the side of Sun Leviathan last time, but obviously they had some difficulty on the execution. So with that in mind, maybe go to some easier champions to work with. I One spot that sticks out to me is that it's difficult to snap engage with Lilia because you are at risk of being in a situation where your opponent can just flash away, like what we saw last game from flash abusers. They were abusing that flash. They were making sure that there wasn't going to be opportunities for this Lilia to be successful in that game. So I'd like to see a little bit more consistent primary engage is the real thing. It can be swapped in the top lane, it can be swapped in the jungle, it can be swapped in the support role. Even if you want to change your mid laner to be primary engage, that's fine too. But like what they had last game was way too conditional, and that meant that when they fell behind, then flash abusers always had the counter spell in their hand to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, and like you said, they're picking that Hecarim as that jungler this time, not going for the Lilia. We do have to point out that Flash Abusers kept the same 3 bans as game 1, but Sun Leviathan are picking specifically these bans against those game 1 champions, taking out that mid lane, taking out that AD carry, taking out that jungle, making sure that none of those champions are able to go over. But because they did that, Yumi is open, Seraphine is open, Seraphine being taken by Flash Abusers as their first pick, and Vel'Koz is open for the side of Flash Abusers Isa. One of those champions that he is definitely very comfortable on and definitely loves to play out. Thylaco having 28 games on that champion, a 64% win rate. And Tristana, we do know that, we do know that Tuller is one of those Tristana players. He's not afraid to pull that out as well. Thylaco also having that champion in his pool, so it could be something that we are definitely pulling out and away from Flash Abuser's side, but also putting to use on theirs. Maybe in the mid lane, maybe in the ADC position.
Utilizing some flex picks, you have to appreciate that. You got the gains, you got to flex. So we'll see if that ends up being a flexible pick. I'd like to keep the Seraphine held as a flex as well. Could be 3 different roles. I'd suppose that we'd probably see the bot lane champion locked in here. Could be another flex pick coming through on B3. I like Vi. She's a strong champion that can pretty consistently find some engage and good at dealing with some slippery champions like Tristana. So we'll see if that's going to be effective. You're going to have earlier gank opportunities for both junglers this game. So I'd expect this game to be more explosive than game number 1.
Yeah. I would expect Sun Leviathan. I hope that they do end up picking that strong top lane that they picked before, that Camille. Maybe not Camille this time, maybe a similar champion that does the same thing, but maybe stay in that side lane, keep pushing against Small Broski. As soon as Malachor started leaving that lane, Small Broski was able to gain back little by little that small lead that he had, making sure that it got back to even, and some of those kills coming in, that CS started to even up, and now it became a losing matchup for Malachor. So maybe staying in that side lane, making sure that he's not able to get that lead back and just continuously pushing into Small Broski and making sure that lead is only going bigger and bigger. Now Ornn being the ban away from Sun Leviathan, Darius being taken away from Malachor. So again, these top lane bans are coming out, making sure that there's no safe picks for the side of Broski and no dangerous damage from the side of Malachor.
I'd really like to see Flash Abusers ban out Sivir as the second ban here. I think that Sun Leviathan, if they can pick up Sivir, would be in a really good position for mid to late game fights. Could just press the R. You get that speed up. Sona's also got a speed up. Hecarim just going in. You got double marksman, so your damage to objectives is insane. You just get any sort of ace coming through, and you have your marksman both up, then you're just going straight to Baron every time. You're going to be able to shred that one down. I love a Sivir pick here on R4.
Yeah, we may be able to see it out. They might want to keep that Tristana. And it looks like it's going to be a Soraka. So we're definitely gonna have to see where some of these champions are coming through. Could be maybe that Soraka mid. Could be a Tristana Soraka bot lane, Sona mid, Sona Soraka bot lane. Honestly, I'm not quite sure where these champions are going. I've known of the Seraphine Sona, but I've never heard of a Soraka Sona. However, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but
I'm
definitely interested to
expecting
see what their pick five is going to be.
I'm expecting Soraka in a solo lane here. I think that it could be mid Soraka or top Soraka potentially. I think that Sona isn't nearly as good as Soraka in solo lane areas, so I'm not expecting that. And I don't think that their 2v2 is very good either. Although into a Varus, it wouldn't be like the worst situation to put double enchanters as your bot lane. I just don't think that Soraka Sona is the type of pairing that you do that with. So with this final lock in, we do get to see what you were
Ooh.
asking for. Got a similar champion to the Camille, but not exactly Camille. Going to be Jax instead. Stay up there in the top lane this time. Deal with the Mundo one-on-one, mano-y-mano. We'll see if it's going to be more of a focus around that top side this time around, as opposed to getting that first kill and then just moving throughout the map. I think that when you pick, I'm gonna guess Soraka mid, and if you have Soraka mid, then that allows you to focus on your side lanes, right? You need to just press R to swing any fight. You just get to hide under tower with that Soraka pick, make sure that you're not dying is mostly what you want to do. So that allows more of the focus to go into the other areas of the map.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be a very good top lane that's going to be happening here. Jax versus that Dr. Mundo. I am very
What's the worst that could
not
happen?
quite sure how that matchup happens, although knowing the scalings of Jax, I would assume that he is able to win in the 1v1 against that Dr. Mundo with a little bit of Icy on his hand. But yeah, especially with that Soraka too, a lot of healing coming out from Sun Leviathan, Sona, Soraka, even the Hecarim with that W can be especially dangerous. Although Flash Abusers definitely has a similar theme going on throughout their champions this time. Only Seraphine really hitting that AoE ability. Victor hitting a little bit of AoE, but a lot of idea of going for just one specific champion by with that lockdown. Varus again with that lockdown as well. Dr. Mundo being able to face tank a lot of the damage coming out. So I think mainly for the most part, it's just going to be seeing how much life steal and how much life cut that they can get on both sides. A lot of dangerous healing coming out. Seeing who can get that out first and make sure that they can shut down the other team.
I have concerns about the Sun Leviathan draft as now I'm seeing that the Tristana has been locked in mid, which would give them
Ooh.
more pressure in the mid lane and help them absorb pressure in the bot lane, but also would make me feel concerned about how the bot lane is going to go. But either way, I think that as a 5v5, uh, going the direction of the Jax kind of goes against being able to have all of the potential to win a 5v5. You're most likely going to be in a situation where you're wanting to have your Hecarim Tristana Jax go in towards the back line. But when you do that, you go away from your healers. So having Soraka Sona alongside Dive isn't the most optimal situation. And one nice thing about the Varus pick here is that Varus has natural heal cut with one of his abilities. He just gets to put down a field, the hail of arrows, to be able to take away some of that health regeneration. I think that's why we see it get picked here. You're also up against a Soraka who's vulnerable to poke in the early stages of the game. I'd like to see a bot side focus coming out here from Flash abusers. Utilize this Vi pick to go for some kills even earlier than what we saw last game.
Yeah. If you had to give your money to one side or the other, who would you choose?
If I had to give my money to one side or the other, well, I think that my bet would definitely be on Flash abusers. They executed well in the last game, even falling behind early on. They were able to bounce right back from it. And I think that they've got the better team comp here. I'm really intrigued to see what happens with this double enchanter bot lane that Sun Leviathan are going with, but I ultimately don't think that it looks like it's going to perform very well based off of what I'm seeing in all the matchups. So they're really going to heavily need their solo lanes to get in a carry position to be able to win this game.
Yeah, well, with that mention, we're going to go into a small little break and see how these teams are able to play it out. Which team is able to pull out ahead? Will the solo lanes of Sun Leviathan be able to get that lead, or will Flash Abusers be able to move it around the map, make the difference in their matchup instead? So don't go anywhere as we let these champions get into the game for the next 2.5 minutes or so. and welcome back for game 2 of Flash Abusers versus Sun Leviathan. We have Sun Leviathan or sorry, Flash Abusers going for a little bit of a cheeky play here. Malachor spotting it out, and they don't know he's there, so it's going to be pretty easy for them to be able to avoid whatever is happening. Spies and Tool are going over, making sure they get those wards down. Nothing happening. And some wards coming out from Alcalora and Toadstep into that bot side of Flash Abuser. No fun happening early on. A little bit of a dodge coming out from the side or from the side of Sun of Life, making sure that they don't get caught there.
Wow, with that extra knowledge, going to be able to get some better understanding what's going on in the early game. Could prevent some early gank trouble coming through. Actually, it's interesting to me that we see the ward coming through in the brush instead of on the red buff here. So that means that it will be not complete information. Still, we'll know when the Raptors are started, so should still be plenty useful, but doesn't actually let you know 100% exactly where Vi's starting. So a level 2 gank could still be effective here towards the top lane. Looks like Ghost Lift are going to clear a little bit more heavily before starting on towards any of those 2v1s, though.
Yeah, and now Malachor, as we know, getting a little bit of that early health lead going to that top lane. Small Broski, again, not really respecting the damage coming out from the champions that Malachor's plays and just making it a little bit harder for himself pre-6 and making that first about 3 waves extremely hard to be able to play out.
So let's take some notes about this bot lane. So first of all, the farming champion is of course the
Ooh.
Soraka. Soraka much better at farming than Sona is, has better attack speed, and the abilities are better as well for
Ooh.
being able to target which minions that you want to attack. So that makes a lot of sense. Going to be starting a Doran's ring, and while they aren't going to actually be very strong in winning the matchup, Hecarim carries a lot of his own damage. So once the level 6s come through, they do have a little bit of gank set up. It's not the best in the world, but they can definitely put some threat onto there. Going to be pretty difficult to dive them because they've got so much sustain. Even though there is some of that health cut or healing cut that Varus has in his kit that I talked about before, that's not 100% heal cut, so it still is very difficult to walk under tower against these guys. And I think that once we get to the later stages of the game, it's going to be a lot about wave management, actually, which is going to be really interesting to see at this level of play.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, in that bot lane, we saw a little bit of a trade. So although Varus and Seraphine, you would expect them to have a lot of damage coming out, Sona and Soraka are able to trade back, also healing up. So making it a little bit hard for them to actually be able to trade some of these. Uh, like you said, the healing just being able to do so much, the sustain, and making it so hard for them to able to actually die inside of that lane. Now we have to look
Another
at
thing Oh, yeah. Another thing that I wanted to bring the viewer attention to here is that it is a lethal tempo variety of Varus here. Going to be building the on hit, probably going to be the Immortal Shield Bow into Ginsu's build. I like to see that here because if you throw out a ton of poke, but it gets healed right back up, you sustain it with the Sona and Soraka, who both have healing as opposed to shields, so they can go into pretty much any situation and nullify the value of that poke, then
yeah.
it's going to be difficult to get that value.
Like you said, Fives is actually making his way down there. The flash still here for Lien and getting the first blood onto Totes that ends up falling himself. But that 400 gold going over to that side and taking out Toadstep here. Now Small Broski taking a little bit of damage in that top lane. But yeah, you pointed out that Spies carries a lot of damage for himself. And he was pointing it out. Unfortunately, Toadstep ends up falling first, but Lien is the trade back, so just a little bit too early for the side of Sun Leviathan there. And the flash is coming out, and now Malachor is stuck somewhere that he does not want to be, flashing forward, and unfortunately not getting Small Broski Ghost Lifter there to answer the call. another kill going over to that side.
The stage has been set. We can see both of these junglers are going to want to put on the carry pants, going to go into different lanes, make some moves, make some plays happen, and we see that it's going to be a lot more fighting, especially once the level sixes come through. Flash expended there by Ghost Lifter to make sure to secure that kill in the top lane. And Leon gonna be able to find a kill as well at the expense of Flash and also falling there in the bot lane. Still a better situation than just dying 0 for 1. So well done there. And I think that for Sun Leviathan, they're going to need to really slow the pace of the game down. They want to get into the later stages of the game where they can get their double enchanters to work on the rest of the team. But it will be difficult to find the right angles to perfectly manipulate the other team into position where they can actually get value out of all 5 of their champions.
Yeah. And as we're seeing how they did in game one as well, Tuller jumping in and taking a lot of damage. Thylaco actually hits 6, but Tuller does 2. A lot of damage coming out, jumping into it, and we're maybe regretting it a little bit. Ghost Lifter ends up coming through, but Tuller flashing out before anything else can actually happen. So something I did want to point out was flash abusers. We do know them to be able to take those objectives on spawn, and like we saw in game one, they take that Chem Drake as soon as it spawns in that bot lane. Lian and Bento having the lead going on, and so Ghost Lifter just had free reign over that Drake, and now taking that for the first Drake going down for that for this game. Tuller looking mid lane a little bit harder and ends up getting the kill on Thylaco, just enough damage. Ignite coming out as well, and now he's just gonna have his reign as well. So solo lanes are, like you said, gonna be extremely important to make sure that they get ahead.
Yeah, now we've got another back and forth going on. As you say, that Drake going over. This time, it's much less surprising to me to see the early Drakes going the way of Flash abusers up against a double Enchanter lane. It's difficult to find kill pressure on them, but you can always push them out. It's so going to be having that priority consistently in the bottom side. That usually leads to potential to take Drakes and to convert on that here and try to at least zone away the enemy bot lane for a while for what they can. Level 6 available.
Yeah, level 6 coming out. Lian ends up using that ultimate and Bento too. And now Toadstep being the one that falls. Encore and the Chains of Corruption being too much CC for Toadstep to be able to hit. Getting that level 6 before their counterparts and now using to the best of their ability. We have Ghost Lifter and Spies also having 6 in this river, but neither of them seem too keen on making that 1v1 happen.
Yeah, would have had to chase pretty deep to find any kill there for Ghost Lifter. You don't really want to run into Tuller, so I'm going to be able to back that one out. But just another clean kill going over in the bot lane. And now Leon going to 2-1-0 after getting pressured early on by Spice is in a really good spot, still up as well, about 30 CS. So going to be in a strong position to try to carry this game.
Yeah, this time the switch of the early lead goes over to Tuller instead of Malachor here. But like you said, that early the 2 kills onto Lien in the 30 CS league going over there makes it extremely hard for that to actually matter really too much. Varus being able to put out so much damage, Tristana really being known for getting that one target and backing up. So it's going to be extremely hard for them to be able to play this game out. Soraka and Sona, although they do have a lot of sustain, they do have to wait for some of those items to come in to be able to be that unkillable lane that we are expecting them to be. And now
Yeah,
it's just a waiting game for them.
they do
Although
need
we
some of
do
those
have
items.
Ghost Sifter coming into this bot lane, the flash coming out from both of them, but not quite enough. And Toadstep seeing his 3rd gray screen of the game 10 minutes in, unfortunately just giving another kill over to Lien. So even more of that gold going over to Varus.
That's definitely going to help Leon set up for some carry potential. I was going to say, and it still holds true, that it is fortunate that enchanter items are pretty cheap. So it's not like losing out on some gold is going to be a huge issue for this bot lane. But the problem is that when you give all the gold over to the enemy team, then all of a sudden their carries are able to come online and they're going to get a lot more value out of their 2 items, 3 items than you will be able to with the cheaper enchanter items. So that puts a lot of pressure on the solo lanes to perform and to outperform in order to make sure
Ooh.
that they are at least staying even with the carry potential of Lean's Varus.
Yeah, and we are seeing that Varus and Seraphine being put in action. Soraka already half health as she gets back. And so it's just gonna be so hard now. Like you said, we're expecting it to be that uncuttable lane, but it's extremely hard. Unfortunately, we have to do look top lane. Ghost Lifter and Small Broski looking at Malachor, but the flash out, keeping him safe. So going in and immediately going out. But now going in one more time. Small Broski doesn't have that ultimate going through. Malachor trying to get the stun, but not quite. These axes are just hitting their marks and making it so hard for him to move around inside of this lane.
I like the aggression there for Malachor, keeping in mind that the Soraka ult was available. Looking to go for an all-in exchange there was enough to force the ult out of Small Broski, but I think that getting out alive at the very least is a fine outcome. And with the knowledge that we just saw Ghost Lifter on the top side of the map, that's going to be enough to trade a Drake back over. So good macro play, good team coordination coming through there for Sun Leviathan. Have gotten at least a little bit more of a timer this game before we're going to see the soul come through, which in this case is going to be an ocean.
Yeah, Ocean Soul definitely being of a very interesting soul to be able to see in both of these games. Seraphine and Soraka Sona all being in the same game, being known as some of those great healers that we know, and now just becoming, even stronger, being able to show as even more healing coming out, a lot of damage. Small Broski hitting that grasp of the Undying and the Heartsteel stack, and now Thylaco trying to live against Spies, but Spies is getting the better of Thylaco, his second death of the game, falling over to Spies here, not even needing to use that ghost and being able to take out that mid laner. More stacks going through to Tuller and Spies now.
And this is the power of switching from Lilia to Hecarim. Hecarim going to be able to get a lot more aggressive at the beginning of the exchange. So that's going to be enough to find a second kill here in the mid lane. Now Tuller going in.
Yeah, Tula going in. Ghost Lifter not expecting this quite much. And now Spy still has the ultimate. So Ghost Lifter ends up falling. Another kill going over to that side. Tula getting that one. And it's just not looking good for the mid lane of Flash abusers this game. Thylaco now being in on again. Tuller looking for getting the jump reset, but not quite enough damage coming out. Thylaco still looking very dangerous, getting a lot of damage going out. But both of these mid laners having flat players feeling very confident in getting that kill first.
I like the synergy between the rune selection and the itemization from Tuller, going for Hail of Blades to make sure that the trades come out quicker, can stack up that bomb so that you can get a reset. And in addition, going with the Blade of the Ruined King, getting all of those auto attacks out so quickly is really advantageous when you can stack up the passive ability from the Blade of the Ruined King. Gonna be nice to have that 1 item power spike. I think that that's going to be maybe the strongest power spike of the game here for Tuller. But I think that in any 1v1, that's going to be quite meaningful. And I'd expect to see Tuller getting aggressive in the side lanes for the remainder of this game.
Yeah, Tuller is definitely going to be one of those leaders that's going to be having to make some plays on the side of Sun Leviathan, taking a lot of, or having half of the kills, and he's going to be having a lot of the damage on the team. So we're gonna have to look at Tuller, Spies, Malachor to be able to put out that damage, but specifically tools and or sorry, Tuller inside of these team fights. And now we see Small Broski and Malachor trying to take this and duel it out. But Ghost Slipper ends up interrupting the 1v1 saying, "Excuse me, Soraka, well, I'm here too." And now another kill going to the side of Ghost Slipper, making it 2-1 and 1, 0-2-0 from Malachor.
And the big part of that play isn't actually the kill itself. I mean, getting the kill there definitely feels good for Ghost Lifter. You get some extra gold over to start working towards the second item. Already got the Black Cleaver. That one's going to work really well with the Varus and a Dr. Mundo. But the big part of that play is that Alcalora used ultimate and wasn't able to swing the fight. That means it's on cooldown for quite a long time. I mean, the base cooldown is over 100 seconds, so that's a long window here for the side of Flash abusers to be able to go for plays. I mean, the game slowed down quite a bit just because of the level 6 coming through from the Soraka, but that slowed pace doesn't hold up when the ultimate is on cooldown.
Yeah, a lot of those resistances being taken away from Malachor without that ultimate. Some of these mythic items now coming out for both sides. We have the Sunder coming out for Jax on Malachor, and we have Heartsteel now getting those stacks. So already having in the last fight, but definitely getting a lot more stacks coming out. Black Cleaver being the first item for Ghost Lifter, definitely one of those very crucial items. As you're saying, those resistances coming in. And so now it's going to be very important to be able to burn those down and make sure that his team is able to take out some of these little bit more tanky players inside of Leviathan.
First item's complete for just about everyone now. A couple towers going down in the early stages here. We'll see just how far that the top lane ends up getting pushed out by Small Broski. But I think that there could be a fight brewing around the Drake as well.
Yeah, a 4v4 going out, neither top laner having TPs to get into it. And Lian is looking for it. Now seeing that Sun Leviathan is already on at half health, checking and seeing Tuller on the side lane
Oh,
and
they
not
picked
quite
the
getting
Sona.
him. Ends up getting out, but Sona being caught out once again. Toadstep on his fourth gray screen, and now it's going to be making it a little bit harder. A 4v3 coming out, but we do have to see Bento is looking very unhealthy. And it looks like Sun Leviathan may be trying to just go for the steal here. Spy's looking for it, but ends up just backing out. So the third Drake of the game goes over to the side of Flash abusers.
Oh, Toadstep tried really hard there, landing that four-man crescendo, but the rest of the team just wasn't there to follow up. Can't stun the Vi coming through with the cease and desist, so ends up falling. There's no recourse for the side of Sun Leviathan, and now they've fallen behind on the gold and the Drake count. We'll see if they can get some back here.
Yeah, Spies is looking in. Bento seems to be the target, trying to hit that ultimate encore, but not quite enough. And now Small Broski, it's up to him to try and get out of here, trying to get the axis as much as he can. Malachor getting a little bit too aggressive, but ends up just being safe enough, not quite losing his life for pushing up that far. And now a free kill going over to the side of Sons of Leviathan. But now the cease and desist going over to Toadstep once more, but now having to back up. Tula getting onto the back line. Thylaco getting very afraid and having to flash out. Ghostlifter trying to hold back the team, and Small Broski as well. Malachor looking like the target, but now he is losing a lot of his health. And now Lian in the back line trying to face that Malachor, but not quite getting it. Oh, just getting enough damage, getting the 1-for-1 in the back line. And now the rest of the team of Flash abusers is falling one by one. Small Broski trying to get out with his life, trying to get away from the speed of Spies and the speed of Toadstep, getting them forwards. It looks like he will be the last member of this fight to fall. 3-4-1 for the side of Sons of Leviathan. And now it looks like it might be the answer of this mid turret as well.
Ghost Lifter just getting a little bit too aggressive there, trying to go in on the re-engage, but the health bars were filled back up. That's how you want to see a Soraka ultimate being used. Alcalora pretty effective there with it. Going to be able to set the team up for success, and the re-engage comes through from Spies. Just perfectly executed there, able to get the kills. And even Malachor getting a lot of pressure on Deline made a pretty big difference. So a lot of members of Sun Leviathan going to be able to do some good work there. Still not going to bring them all the way back up to level, but gets them in a pretty good position to at least contest in some of these future fights. And if they're able to execute well, they should be able to at least go toe to toe.
Yeah, the gold was about a 1.5 to 2,000 gold lead for the sides of Flash abusers, but now has basically all evened up, even a tiniest lead going to the side of Sons of Leviathan. But looks like there's going to be a little bit of a bush camp from the side of Flash abusers trying to get behind that Baron. Toadstep looking like he might be a target. Alcalora looking a little dangerous as well. It seems like no one's going to fall for it just yet.
We'll see if they end up walking into the brush here. Spies wouldn't be immediately dead. Never
Ooh,
mind.
and there we go. The chains of corruptions coming out. There. Oh, and he is trying to go in, but he will end up falling. The encore, the chains of corruptions, the cease and desist being far too much, not being able to back up their jungler or Alcalora and Toadstep, having to back up so they don't lose their lives as well. A strong pick for the side of Flash abusers, and now this Baron looks like it might be a target, but Small Broski being caught out a little bit himself. Tuller being in the jungle, but not quite enough to be able to take out with that ultimate, with that maximum dosage coming out and healing him basically back up to full. Now the Baron is going to be falling bit by bit by taking out that blast plant from the back. And now they seem to be backing up,
Look
making
at
sure that
Lean
there's no
go.
damage, but they don't have to worry about a smite coming out. And now Malachor getting a little bit too greedy. Toadstep next being the target here. He will fall as well. So another two members coming out for the side of their Sons of Leviathan. And now Flash Abusers are coming back towards the Baron, but they do have to worry that Spies is back up. Although no Flash, although no Blast Plant, he does have the speed of a horse, and he will be possibly trying to steal that away, but it looks like Flash abusers are just going to try and reset for that Drake instead.
I think that's a wise decision. Going to be able to complete some items here, getting past 2 item power spike on this Dr. Mundo. Small Broski's just been hanging out in a side lane all day, using the power to go where he pleases, just to go back where he normally belongs. So that's quite effective so far. Going to be looking to group up with the team for this play, I'd imagine. All 5 members going to show up here. Malachor going towards the top side, so I'd imagine what some Leviathan are thinking is that they want to give the Drake, but they want to be as much of an annoyance as possible so that Malachor has as much time as possible to work on that top lane tower. We'll see how long that they can hold off the side of Flash abusers.
Ooh, they don't see Tuller in this bush over here. Now finally being spotted out by Small Broski, trying to hit those hits, and Vi having to back up a little bit. Spy is getting some alone time with Small Broski in the Drake pit. Now just trading off the damage, but now the Soraka ultimate coming out and the cease and desist on top of the damage. Tuller almost getting hit, but now the back line of Flash abusers is just being taken out. Lian being taken out, Ghostlifter as well, Crescendo, and the Encore coming out, but not enough damage from the side of Flash abusers as they slowly fall. Flash coming out from Thylaco trying to save his life, and Small Broski is trying to 1v3 inside of this game, but not quite enough damage, not quite enough health to stay alive. He will fall as well, and it looks like it will be the 4th Drake falling to the side of Sons Leviathan here.
Some Leviathan making an adjustment here to how they're executing on their team comp. They recognize now that enchanters can't really help you when the rest of the team dives past the enemy front line. So they've started to play it more front to back here. And while that doesn't utilize all of their abilities to get towards that back line, it does allow for the enchanters to do all the healing that they want to do. Got more item completion starting to come through here for the bot lane of Sun Leviathan. They're in position now where using that makes it so difficult to get those kills. I thought even at the beginning of the fight to myself that I was concerned about the way that the Soraka ultimate was used. But even then, even though it only got value onto 1 or 2 members that were low, it was enough to get them in position where they could go back in for the rest of the fight onto the enemy side. Malachor did another fantastic job of getting on top of lead. That's been a consistent theme throughout some of these team fights. It's been like Tuller and Spies are sticking near the enchanters and Malachor is trying to find a flank. In the future, I need to see from Flash abusers that they're going to find where this Jax is and make sure that he is not killing your
Ooh.
fed Varus.
It looks like it's going to be another pick onto Spies. The ultimate's coming out, but not quite enough damage. The sustain coming out from Soraka and Sona, keeping him alive. Tueler finding Bento in the back line and just not being enough. Now Alcalora is finding Ghost Lifter, and now Tueler ends up being falling from the side of the back, but Small Broski is just now trying to defend in that mid lane. Three of those members coming out, Leanne, Bento, and Ghost Lifter trying to pick out Spies, but not quite enough damage before Alcalor and Toadstep are there to keep him alive. So yeah,
And that
like you
might just
said,
be
now that they have those
Baron.
items, it becomes so much harder for them to be able to take out Spies, be able to take out Twitch without that healing being the absolute destruction to their team comp.
With the Baron buff going over now as well, it's going to be an opportunity to start sieging up. There's a lot of standing gold on the map. They don't have any more bounties. They've gotten back to dead even on the gold. They will fall a little bit further behind once again as soon as these tier 2 towers start to fall, but they're going to have an opportunity to get a lot of gold off of this push. They've still got tier 1s bot and top, but they're going to get attacked before they can start looking for the push.
Yeah, Spies is going in, trying to find Lien and Bento there. Chains of Corruptions hitting onto Soraka, but the cleanse coming out, and now Malachor trying to get onto the back line, but falling before the healing can get there. Alcalora is trying to being the target, and Thylaco ends up killing him in the end. So now two of the members of Sons of Leviathan falling early. The main healer and the main flank taken out, and now Lien can live in full safety without having to fear for his life inside of this fight. The inhib ends up falling for the side of Son of Leviathan. Flash Abusers getting a very strong lead there.
And this game's just gone back and forth. It's on a knife's edge right now. Whether there's going to be fights where picks come through for Flash Abusers like we've just seen, whether there's going to be front to back 5v5s where the enchanters get to do all of the healing that they're looking for, whether there's going to be a 5v5 where Lean is going to be able to start to deal out all of the DPS without getting stopped by Malachor at the beginning of the play. These are all the questions that need to be answered going forward, and it's really up in the air. This game, much closer than what we saw in game number 1, and there's still opportunity with the remainder of the Baron buff for the next minute and 15 seconds for the side of Sun Leviathan to get some more gold back, try to take out some of these towers, but they've definitely been put on the backside of this play just by the fact that the Engage was able to yield 2 big kills coming through the direction of Flash Abusers.
Yeah, you're saying that Sons of Leviathan were playing that front to back. But unfortunately, Spies, okay, Spies possibly getting taken out here a little bit early on. The ultimate coming out and trying to save it, getting the ultimate out, but just Chains of Corruption holding him down, and now he's going to fall. Malachor trying to get in the back line onto Lien and Thylaco, but not enough damage before the stopwatch comes out. Lien ends up falling instead, but not before trading back, and now Small Broski trying to take out Toasta before he gets away, not quite getting there. The Blast Plant ends up saving his life. A TP coming out from Thylaco, backing and then coming back in for this fight. Possibly going for the last push of the game, a 3v2 for the base defense of Sons of Leviathan. It may be
They don't
very
have good
hard as
wave
they
clear.
still do have this Baron buff holding off the minions of the side of Flash Abusers. And it looks like they're just going to take that one turret and back up. So sorry, like you were
Yeah.
saying, it becomes
Yeah.
extremely hard for the side of the Sons of Leviathan if they don't play that way that they've been playing this game, trying to play that front to back, making sure that Soraka and Sona are able to play in the back line, keeping their carry safe. But again, the crescendo coming out, Small Broski and Bento trying to hold them off. So Ghost Lifter is able to try and come for this Drake. Although it's not soul just yet, it is going to be soul point, regardless of whoever's team takes this 2-2 on these Drakes. And now Alcalor getting very forward. It's not quite having the team. The cease and desist comes out and he will fall. And now Bento able to get the encore onto two members, Spies and Malachor trying to or falling into the back line. And now it's just gonna be a rundown of Tueler and of Toadstep. Tueler ends up falling, trying to get into the back before Toad Step falls as the chase happens, and now a 5 for none ace for the side of Flash Abusers and will be the end of the game.
Well, it just ended up being too difficult to position around these divers, these enchanters. I understand now what we're trying to go for on the side of Sun Leviathan, but they're just not able to make it work out. They end up falling 2-0 here, and a pretty clean closeout of game number 2, and a well executed game number 1 as well from the Flash Abusers. They will be advancing on towards the finals. I didn't see the bracket. Was this the upper bracket semifinal or the lower bracket semifinal?
This is the lower bracket quarters. So they will be going into the semis versus either Mythic Academy, or I'm not quite sure who the Mythic Academy is going to be playing. But yeah, they're going to be going into the semifinals of the knockout division against
All right.
either, yeah.
And that means
So
that's going to be all for Sun Leviathan. They put up a good fight here. They brought out a little bit of an interesting team comp. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I like some of the ideas that were within it, like going for the Soraka bot lane. I can see where the value would come from. I think that with maybe a little bit of a different top side of the map, the Soraka Sona could have worked out here. But at the end of the day, they ended up falling behind and they couldn't make their way back, even though they got to some points where they were really close to being in a dominating position almost, but not going to be quite enough. Well done by Flash Abusers. I think that throughout this series, they got stable performances from their carries. They had appropriate responses from the supporting roles to complement what they had there, and they were able to just show that they were a little bit of a cut above the side of Sun Leviathan. So definitely a deserved advancement into the knockout semifinals.
yeah, definitely a very strong showing from the sides of Flash Abusers. A lot of damage coming out from Small Broski in their front line, but Lian and Bento, we can't take away from them being able to show that 2v2 potential in both games. Although Ghostlifter did show his face in the bot lane, they were able to show their 2v2 potential over and over inside both of these lanes. So it was very, very, I guess, entertaining to be able to see that bot lane, how it played out. So if you had to give the MVP for this game 2, who would you give it to?
For game two, that's tougher than game number one, I think.
Yeah, I have to
I
give it
guess
to.
that we saw a lot of good ultimates from Bento. At the end of the day, when it was the front to back style team fights, a lot of what was making the difference was whether Malachor could get onto the back line or not. So that had to do a lot with the positioning of Lean. But I think that for the rest of the fights, Bento was putting out a lot of good CC, complementing the rest of the team well. So I'll give credit to the Seraphine here. 1-3-19. That'll be my MVP.
Yeah, well, she was definitely doing a great job trying to keep Leanne alive in some of these team fights, especially towards the end, getting that encore onto a lot of the members of Sons of Leviathan. So that will be the end of the series for tonight. Flash Abusers getting the lead over Sons of Leviathan 2-0 and heading on into the Targon bracket against either Mythic Academy or San Ninja, depending on who wins their game. So that was all we have for us tonight. Inigo Montoyas and Tiger 58 being your lovely casters for tonight, and we will bid you a farewell and a good night.